We made this.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Pick a Disc. I am, as always, your host Matt Latham, and this is the podcast, as always, where someone picks a disc to talk about for whatever reason they want to. And today, my guest is Lucy Lenoir from the bands Apotheca and Haunter, and she's here to talk about 13th Step by the band A Perfect Circle. So yeah, naturally, as always, we'll talk about the album, we'll talk about songs, we'll talk about all sorts of stuff. There is a part where I do get someone's name wrong. I actually get a member of Tool's name wrong, so I'm going to apologise in advance for that, because I feel like a right idiot. And considering that I've also recorded the episode after this as well, as I'm recording this, I do a really bad name on that as well. So if anyone finds my mistaking of different names hilarious, you're in for a great month, you are. So anyway, aside from me, let's just talk about the podcast for a second. So if you like the podcast, if you listen to this for the first time, you think, oh, this podcast is pretty good, follow us in other places, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but I only use that to update this. I'm now on Blue Sky, I'm on Threads, all these sorts of different places. There's a Discord channel. The Discord server has been around for ages. So if you want to find the link to that in the show notes, feel free to go and look at that, because I'm looking forward to speaking to people. But yeah, and I think that is pretty much everything. I can't think of anything else that's coming to my head that I need to mention, apart from, yeah, we've got an episode coming up, and I'm about to press play on it. So, yeah, let's talk to Lucy. And again, in another edition of Matt Talks About the Weather, which isn't supposed to be an ongoing thing.
Hi, everyone.
I've now officially gone to the point where I'm actually now Googling just before we start recording, myself and my guest, who I'll introduce in a second, I actually Googled the Celsius to Fahrenheit, and it turns out that as much as the heat wave that the UK is happening, apparently it's really, really cool over here in comparison. But,
oh, yeah.
But,
yeah, we're sitting over here at 105-ish degrees. So you said it was what did you say, 40 or something? 40 Celsius?
30, so it's about 86 Fahrenheit, which
30.
is...
Okay, yeah. It sounds so nice right now. I would love that. That would be a blessing.
Saying that, there's some really dark clouds, and there might be a thunderstorm happening at any point during this recording.
Lucky. So. That's the best, too. Yeah. That's the best time. That's my favorite one.
Yes, and the lovely voice that you can hear is Lucy Lenoir from Haunter /
yeah,
Apotheca
the other band was Apotheca. Yeah.
Yes, and here to talk about music. Here to talk about music and not about the weather, as much as I seem to have the habit of doing. It's like about the 4th or 5th time in a row that I've ended up talking about the weather, which is, I swear I'm getting more stereotypically British as I'm getting older.
As you get older, it just gets worse with time.
Yes.
That's okay. I'm becoming more and more Texan as time goes on, so that's okay.
Yeah, and all the way from Texas, which is, I think, the 3rd or maybe 4th guest we've had from Texas now. Nearly getting...
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I've had, I think, Austin. I think I had a couple of Austin. I think I've had another Houston.
Oh, nice.
And I think there might have been somewhere else, and I can't remember. But yeah, but I've got an affinity for kind of Texas. It's the first American state I ever visited, so...
Yeah. It is the best one to visit, so.
It's large.
Thanks for coming.
It's massive. It's massive.
We always say Texas is the greatest country in the United States, so.
But we're not here to talk about geography or about kind of the weather. We're here to talk about music and an album specifically that Lucy's picked. So, Lucy, without beating around the bush, why don't you tell the lovely listeners the disc that you've picked for us to talk about today?
So they asked me what album I would choose. My guitarist was like, if you were stuck on an island in the middle of nowhere, you only get one album to listen to until you die. And that album was The 13th Step by A Perfect Circle. I found this band, it's sad to say almost 20 years ago now. I feel so old saying that. It's been about 20 years since I found this out, since it came out. And it just hit me in the hardest way musically. I'm a huge metalhead, so I was born and raised listening to just really heavy. One of my first favorite bands when I was like 5 was Pantera. So usually listening to very heavy stuff when I was younger because of my dad, who's awesome. And yeah, I remember hearing this and it just totally opened so many doors for me. Musically, the tones were so unique. I had never heard anything like this album, and it just completely changed my path as a musician. To be completely honest with you, I think if I didn't find this album and this band, I may have not ended up making any of the music that I'm making now. So I'm very grateful to have found it for sure. For
Okay.
sure.
Okay, so that answers the why you picked this album then. So it's so a formative
Yeah.
album, so a very formative album then, or like, or would
Oh,
it
for
be
sure.
would you say it's the definite?
It's one of the two. So my well, I guess three really. So growing up on metal, the first one that I was going to pick out of just, the first album I ever remember listening to was Vulgar Display of Power by Pantera, which was going to be my first one because I actually have a Pantera tattoo on my wrist,
Mm-hmm.
the little CFH, this little guy. So that was one of the reasons, the very first reasons I started making music in the first place was because of Pantera. And I was, 5 years old, 6 years old, listening to someone screaming. And I was like, what? How is he doing that? It just like blew my mind. I couldn't figure out how it worked. So I was just fascinated with it. So there was Vulgar Display of Power was going to be one of my other options. Waking the Fallen by Avenged Sevenfold would have been another one. Their very first album. And I remember being 12 years old and just like it blew my mind. So I ended up getting their band logo tattooed on my chest, just huge as well. So I had the death bat from Avenged Sevenfold quite large on my chest for a good portion. It's covered now by my neck. I got it redone, but yeah, huge fan of them too. But yeah, do you want me to just go into the album itself? Like it's a magical piece of work. So
We'll get to that in a sec. I
yeah,
think
for sure.
before we get into the album, I kind of wanted to still get into some of the stuff about your kind of personal kind of musical journey to that point. One of the things that you mentioned, one of the things that you said quite early on that I want to kind of ask you about. You said it kind of changed your musical direction. So, I mean, what?
Sure.
So, what was your music taste at that point? I mean, how old were you? Was it like 5 or something? Would you say when you was?
I was like, so when I found Pantera, I was like 5. I was very young. That's what I was started on from a wee baby. I found A Perfect Circle. I was probably maybe 13 or 14, so still pretty young. Before I found them, I just wanted heavy, 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 heavy all the time. I didn't want, and I mean, this band is still heavy, but I was listening to, like deathcore metal, like I mean, like pig squealing, if you know what that is, just super heavy, brutal vocals, basically stuff that a lot of people don't want to listen to. So that's what I was already started.
No one's picked any albums like that for this podcast yet, but I think
not yet.
I'm assuming that's kind of like the death metal, kind of very screamy, kind of like
yes.
yeah.
Super heavy, yeah. Very
no one's picked that yet. I'm very terrified. It's not.
I hope someone does, so you have to listen to it just to see your face.
I've got a couple of friends who keep threatening me with listening to like proper kind of like screamo metal, and like
yeah.
I've been kind of like being nice to them just. But no, I think
I will say, there's some stuff that I think that's pretty heavy that also has singing in it that you might really like, that could work you into the heavier genre for sure. For sure. There's some like if you go check out Spirit Box, that's a big one. It's all one word. Female vocalist. Her name is Courtney LaPlante, and she's amazing. The band is phenomenal. It's just, if you aren't too big on the screaming thing, I would say start with Spirit Box, and it's just right. It's a good balance for sure. It's heavy without being too like scary heavy. Not intimidating heavy,
Okay, so you was kind of much more like, so 12, 13, you was into like the really heavier stuff. And
oh yes.
Yeah, just like pure heavier stuff, and then I'm assuming this came along.
Right. So of course I'm from Texas, so I also, I'm a big country fan. Surprise, I don't look like it, but I'm a huge fan of country. I actually wanted to start out being a country vocalist when I was a lot younger, because I didn't think I could do metal. I didn't know I could scream or whatever. And now we know I can. But so at that time, I wanted to be a country singer. And then as I grew up, it just kept getting heavier and heavier until probably, God, I guess until this album, to be honest with you. This is what opened up a lot of other doors musically for me. Cause so this album, like I said, I think I was like 13 or 14, listening to a bunch of deathcore, very, very, very heavy stuff. I listened to this album. I had watched Underworld. What is it? Oh my God, my brain is mashed potatoes. Oh my God, I can't remember the name of the movies. Oh my God, I'm brain farting right now, but it's Underworld is like the with the Umbrella Corp and like I'm totally brain farting.
Resident Evil.
There you go. That's it. I don't know why I couldn't think about that right now. So they had on their outro on the end of that movie was one of the songs from this album, Disconnect and Self-Destruct one bullet at a time. And I remember hearing that and I was like, what is this? And I remember, I think this was even before you could like Shazam a song. So I was like, I literally was immediately on my phone typing in the lyrics, disconnect and self-destruct, and the song popped up. And I think it's The Outsider, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. I remember finding that album, and I listened to the whole album probably, I don't know, at least 10 times in a row. Like it was just so good. And it's so heavy, but from what I was listening to, it was so simple. There's a lot of negative space in this album. So there's a lot of times when it just goes down to being very quiet, just vocals, or like just vocals and some kind of like tribal drum situation. So it was very much like, it made me realize you don't have to have just crazy blast beats and just shredding and, the whole time for me to like it. It just kind of took my energy level way down. And I was like, oh, okay, it doesn't have to be very heavy and complicated to be, because I wasn't sure if it was considered metal, if it's considered rock, if it's considered alternative. Because it's still heavy. It's very powerful, but it's heavy without having to be aggressive with it. Like you're saying, it's like almost intimidating listening to metal because it's so just, in your face. It's very hard. It's very it's difficult for a lot of people to get into it just because of, obviously what it sounds like is kind of like, oh shit,
Yeah.
So this was something that really changed it to where I knew like I didn't have to be just heavy all the time to be good. They simplified it and made it something digestible to where I think anyone could listen to it and appreciate it. It's a really good door to open before you go into the heavier metal stuff. So I feel like there's a lot of parts of this album that can get very heavy and aggressive, but they're not intimidating heavy. There's no crazy screaming. It's 98% singing. He yells on a couple parts, but and yeah, I think without this I would have just kept going heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier as time went on. And I still have a huge passion for deathcore. It's one of my favorite genres ever. But this kind of made me wonder if what I was going to be doing musically was too much, because I heard it stripped down and I was like, oh, wow, like it can be powerful without needing to be complicated and progressive the whole time. It can be 4/4, simplified and still enjoy it and it be heavy without being scary. So.
Yeah, I think before perhaps I talk about more of the album, I was going to, when you mentioned, I think, The Perfect Circle, I say I'd never heard of The Perfect Circle before.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, when I started reading into him, the only name that popped up was Jonathan Maynard, who I know from Tool. But then again, I don't really know much of Tool. Tool is a name that I've heard quite a few times, but I couldn't name you a song. I'm not exactly sure if they're heavy or not. That's how much
I would say it's a little heavier than A Perfect Circle. So this is so there's Tool, obviously, which is massive, huge band. So this is just right next door to it. Everybody, it's funny though. They're very similar. I feel like A Perfect Circle is maybe more moody. Tool is very much more progressive with the weird time signatures and a little heavier with the lyric content and things like that. The theme of it is just heavier. A Perfect Circle is more definitely singing, definitely more melodic, a little more chill, less angry with the lyric content, for
Yeah.
sure. I feel like this is his Mr. Keenan, if you will. I'm a huge fan of him. If I ever got to meet him, I think my head would just explode. But him being one of my favorite vocalists, just being from Tool, having a softer project was just a huge, huge thing for me. And I didn't know it was him at first either. I had no idea. And I was just like, oh, A Perfect Circle rocks. And somebody was like, that's the same vocalist, right? And I was like, oh my God, it is. I didn't find out until a couple months after I was listening to them that it was the same vocalist. And I was like, oh, dang, you show right.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that shows you how much I know. I got his name wrong. It isn't. I got Jonathan Maynard for some reason.
James, yeah, Maynard James Keenan is what he goes by, but yeah, he's an amazing vocalist. A lot of very heavy metal heads look up to him vocally, so it's cool that he can do so much vocally. Definitely a little softer than Tool, a little more digestible, if you will, a simplified, more emotional Tool, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, for anyone who's unaware of Perfect Circle, American rock band formed in LA, California, 1999 by guitarist Billy Howardell and Tool vocalist Maynard James Keenan, which is his actual name, not Jonathan Maynard. I have no idea who that is.
Yeah.
Perfect Circle released 3 of their 4 studio albums in the early noughties. They had the debut, which is Murder Noms, and then this album and a couple of others afterwards. And they've been, I think they had a hiatus in 2004, and then they'll come back in 2010 because I think they've all had different kind of like different projects and stuff. I'm not sure what Billy Howardell is involved in. He's got a solo project called Ashes Divide as well, but I'm not too sure about what else he's been in. But from what I gather, they've also had quite a few members like flip in and out based on different albums. So so I'm assuming that means each album's had a slightly different feel because of the different members.
Definitely so. Yeah, the first one you were talking about, Murder Noms, which is also a fantastic album, is definitely a lot heavier and serious of a tone than this album, The 13th Step. This one's more playful. It's got a little bit more variety as far as vibe song wise. Murder Noms is the whole thing is very much more cohesive in tone, which is nice because all the songs have kind of a similar vibe. It's very cohesive. Like I don't know the main person that wrote that album, but they did a great job. Still very heavy all the way through theme wise. This one is very much more playful and has a few more. There's like some softer ones, there's some moody ones, there's some aggressive ones. Yeah, you can tell he definitely progressed like musician wise when they did this album. It's a lot more diverse for sure. So yeah, this one I love Murder Noms. I had to go back and forth when I was trying to pick. I had to listen to both of these albums a couple times to choose which one was my favorite. And that's why I chose this one. There's a little bit more diversity. It's not that Murder Noms is bad at all. It's a fantastic album. I feel like this one's just a little bit more playful, lyrically, tone wise. Some of the different stuff that they do with the effects and whatnot with the guitars are a little different too. So, yeah, this one's like has a little bit more range musically, I think. So, definitely, if y'all haven't heard of A Perfect Circle, listen to all of their albums. They're all fantastic. Like, it never fails, and that's why I could listen to this album forever. There's such a range of emotion, and every song is, sometimes you can listen to a song and it's very much on the surface, and it's just oh, this makes me happy, or this makes me, whatever simple emotion. These songs are like works of art. Like, it's crazy how deeply they can make you contemplate the song. I don't know if that sounds weird, but it just kind of sucks you in. It's like a whole experience. Instead of just listening to a song, it's almost like it puts you in a different frame of mind. Like, I don't know, it's just this relaxing, like, nostalgic tone to this album for me. It just kind of takes me back to when I first heard it. Every single time I hear it, it never gets old. Um, yeah, I could definitely listen to this album every single day. And then I did after that. I hadn't listened to it in a while, so when my guitarist asked me if I wanted to do this, I was like, absolutely. And I listened to this album another dozen times in a row. Never gets old for me, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I think from so I think I've listened to it twice. I think I've managed to listen to it fully twice.
Nice.
I think again, not really my kind of impression of kind of Tool. The only reason I started getting kind of like, I wasn't sure what to expect when I listened to it. So the email came through saying, Lucy wants to talk about Perfect Circle. Oh, I'm not sure who this is. And so kind of, not Jonathan Maynard.
Yeah, Maynard James, yeah.
Maynard Jade.
Oh, you were close enough. You're close. We know who you're talking about either way.
Yeah. I was going to call him not Jonathan for now, I think, but...
right?
Or this fictional person you honestly thought existed.
Yeah.
So the Tool, and I was like, okay, I don't know. I know of Tool. I'm assuming Tool is quite heavy. Maybe this is finally the episode where I have to listen to a metal screamy album, and like started listening to it, and it was like, and I mean the first song's 7.5 minutes long, and
yes,
long term this is now my kind of aversion to long songs, but it was, I think. And it's thankfully it was the longest song is the first song is the longest song, so there's nothing longer.
Yes.
Like nothing as long as this one again. But what I find quite interesting on the first listen was that it is very kind of like, it is kind of sedate, very relaxing, kind of lulls you in and stuff, and then when it kind of hits and goes hard, it doesn't go as hard as I thought it was. I mean, and it has a kind of almost not throwback feel, but it felt like it was, when I was listening to it, I think it was more because I was really kind of like into the kind of Tenacious D albums, and I think Tenacious D is very much like a kind of almost satirical celebration of kind of rock music, and and I feel like I was kind of understanding the kind of music that like Jack Black and Carl Gass were kind of like kind of celebrating, or rather than making fun of, with this, and it kind of, and so like when you had the Pick a Destiny film, when they was doing those kind of hard rock bits, the soundtrack for that, what I really like, has these kind of more sedate kind of songs in them. And I was like, oh, okay, this is something that I can latch. Okay, this is what that side of kind of like music, or that side of kind of rock music that I'm not really too familiar with, sounds like. And it is like a slightly more accessible kind of like sound for perhaps someone with like a weak heavy palate than I.
Yes.
So, and I was actually genuinely surprised. It was a lot quite, and it's very, very strange to say this about this album, but it's a quieter album than I expected it to be. So
yes, right,
yeah,
right, exactly. It's very much less aggressive than you would think it is, with the way it represents itself, like art wise and stuff. Some of their like, if you've ever seen their, sounds silly, but like their T-shirt designs, their album covers, things like that, kind of make you. It lends you to think, maybe this is way heavy, but it's still heavy, but it's got those points that are just like chill, and it's hard to explain, isn't it? Because it doesn't, it really does have these simple parts that kind of, you have to really like dive into, and because it gets kind of quiet and you're just like, okay, what's next? And then it's something completely different. So
yeah. I think my rule, like I should have realised, is that their band logo is still legible, so you can still read it. So like heavy metal bands are like, just, you can't read any of the names, can you? So I think
we always say it just looks like tree branches.
Yeah. I think so I can read the words "A Perfect Circle," so I thought, you know what, maybe it's not as heavy as I thought. If I can't read the band logo, that's when I know I'm in trouble.
Right. That is a good, that's a good marker. I'm not going to lie. It's a good marker. Sure.
But no, but what I quite, and I think when I was kind of reading into the album itself as well, and the album as a whole, and I was trying to figure out, and I was trying to work out before I learned the word 13th step, and I was trying to think, and suddenly I remember trying to figure out why the title 13th step, and I was like, isn't there something that's like 12 steps or something or anything like that? And then looking into it, it's the 12 steps is the Alcoholics Anonymous kind of 12-step program stuff, and I was kind of reading into that, and like realizing that the album is kind of playing on like stories of addiction and
Yes.
the effects of it,
Yeah.
and all the how different people kind of react to it, from addicts themselves or the people closest to them and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's what the title is.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so it's so.
It's,
So I think so in comparison, because you're on about kind of like heavier stuff with Tool. How is so? This is kind of about like okay, kind of diction. So what is the kind of like songs about a Tool? Then are they even heavier or kind of darker or?
you know what? It's very interesting. A lot of Tool stuff is more based on like existence and the theory of being alive in general. Talking about you know, going outside of your body and looking at things from a, perspective of like floating above yourself and things like that. Lots of theological, what's the way to put that? It's a lot of stuff about space and time, and theoretics of existence, the universe, etc. Lots of deep thinking, like um philosophical ideas. And then there's a few of them that are just about it's hiding ways to be vulgar, basically, in some other songs. Like there's some songs that are just very aggressively vulgar. Like there's a song called Stink Fist, which you'll just have to check that one out.
I'm just gonna leave. I don't want to even leave it to my imagination, but I'm gonna
You will
make.
leave that where it is. If you read the lyrics, you're like, oh, word. But the song is beautiful, though. You listen to it and you're like, tell me that you love me and that we've been all together. It's very like, you want to sing it at the same time. And then you realize, because I didn't know what it was about either. So I was always just singing it. And somebody's like, you know what the. I'm like, oh, but it's still such a good song. So he's a little ridiculous with like the themes sometimes. So Tool itself is literally built off of the idea of like a phallus, basically, like a tool. So if that says anything,
Oh,
Mr. Keenan makes lots of interesting song titles and song what's the word, components, I guess. Like very, very interesting, the things he writes about sometimes. But it's really cool because a lot of it's also like I said, he's very playful. He's a crazy person, straight up, which I love. He's just so creative. And there's some songs that are, obviously this album is about, addiction. There's Tool albums that are about nothing but being, vulgar in the classiest way possible. Like you wouldn't know what the song's about. So he kind of plays with like perception of things, because it'll be a beautiful song about the worst thing, so it's fun that he plays around with stuff like that. And also some deep thinking songs that if you read the lyrics you're like, oh shit, okay, like talking about splitting, DNA molecules and things like that. So it's very deep thinking, maybe or maybe not have been tripping on some drugs writing it type of a thing.
so like abstract kind of ideas, and not like personal kind of like songs.
Right.
So
Definitely yourself as a whole, vibing with the whole universe, all energy is the same type of a thing. Yeah, very much deep thinking philosophical things, which I appreciate. It's very intelligent, which is crazy because you go from, having songs about simple things, well, simple-ish things like addiction and, satirical kind of vulgar things that are classy, but also very deep thinking ideas about splitting atoms and the theory of, you know, all energy being intertwined and us being able to lay out our own future in the way that we want because we're connected to everything type of an idea. So it's like very smart, but also very playful at the same time, the way he writes with these bands. So he's just an amazing writer in general. And I didn't know this until recently. He has a winery and like, I don't remember where, it's like in Arizona or something. And he does jujitsu. He teaches jujitsu apparently. So found that out recently. But he's just an interesting guy. Like he's an artist. He's moody. Um, just that's the best way I can put it. He's just a moody, kind of sad, philosophical artist, which I love. Just any of these lyrics, go and just when we get done, just go read all of the lyrics that he's ever written. You'll be like, this guy is very intelligent. Like you can just tell he's done research. He's uh writes about just very interesting theories for sure. So I highly suggest just going on a reading journey of this album for sure. And any Tool album. That'll make you think. If you want to think, those are some lyrics to read for sure.
Okay, so he's a perfect circle. Perhaps his project to try and get slightly more personal rather than as abstract. So is it like so he can get if he use so I'm assuming then he's using Tool to kind of just play with kind of weird abstract kind of concepts and stuff. Perfect Circle is perhaps something that's more personal or more about people and
Definitely.
kind of like people. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Tool is was very just like progressive metal. Let's write something that's just powerful and big and I feel like after that, I mean they obviously got really really popular. They're huge. They're a huge band. Probably one of the biggest, hard rock metal bands ever. And I think after that, he probably, of course after touring for a few years, you probably want to come back down and kind of analyze yourself a little bit after just giving all of your energy away for several years. Because I think it was like, what, 3 years in between these albums? I think Murder Noms was 2000 and this one was 2003, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, they were just like a few years apart. So my theory is, yeah, just like you're saying, pretty much going on tour and getting all that energy out and just creating something big, I would think after all that energy, you kind of need to save some of that for yourself and look at things on a smaller, more personal level. So it's definitely more personal for sure, which I appreciated. Definitely makes you think. Still intelligently written, makes you think, but is more graspable to of course because I'm a musician, so I can appreciate Tool, but I feel like it's might be a little harder for a non-musician to grasp Tool just because it's very progressive. So time signatures are changing, the keys are changing all the time. Um, Whereas a perfect circle is a little more straightforward and, personal, like you're saying, it's telling definitely more graspable theories to the average person for sure. Tool is very deep and yeah, philosophical. This is more personal and emotional for sure. Definitely more emotional, which I think emo kids forever, I think that's probably why I like it. It's a little more
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, I think definitely there's a kind of more personal kind of vibe to this, which I think, well, for me, for someone who doesn't really know much about him at all,
Hmm.
it kind of makes sense that you probably want to like have a different project to kind of explore those kind of things and stuff. And some of the stuff, I think there's a couple of things he's mentioned in kind of like passing about this album, particularly and about what he wants to do. I think he mentioned in a quote which was from MTV,
Hmm.
which is on the Wikipedia page, where he says he doesn't. I don't think the album is specifically for people who are going through recovery, although that metaphor is absolutely present. Many of the songs are sung from perspectives of recovery, from the perspective of a person who's in denial about a loved one, and from the drug perspective itself. The perspective of a person who started to realise there is an issue, and the person who's ready to deal with it. And which I think is kind of like interesting. So it's more about reacting to addiction than perhaps suffering from it. So I mean, is Keen an actual addict? Was he an alcoholic himself? Or was he more of a? Or was it?
As far as I know, from what I've heard, his drug of choice was heroin, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of this comes from. Which is, not understandable for me doing it myself, but it seems, is it not crazy that all of the people that have these addictions and things write the best art though? Any kind of art. If they're a painter and they do it, it's amazing. I'm like, how does this correlate to each other? But yeah, I know he had a problem for a while, so I'm pretty sure getting off of that and needing to express that, a different healthy way was probably how this album came along. Would be my guess. That would be my guess. Um I appreciate him writing about stuff like that, because a lot of these things, again, if you go read the lyrics, it's like, oof, like some of it stings a little bit the way he words things, going through problems and trying to navigate addiction and stuff like that. But it's done in such a beautiful way. Even if you didn't know it was about that, they're just songs that you could just listen to and enjoy as well, which is great. So both a great song, this whole album, great songs, but things that will also, make you think, which is my biggest thing about music. I kind of want to think about things, like
Yeah.
the way I process my life, I guess, more or less.
Yeah. I'm just currently reading through, I think, the Wikipedia for this article. I think the Wikipedia article claims that he didn't struggle with addiction firsthand, apparently, but what he did do was experience other people around him, such as I think Lane Staley, who was the lead singer of Alice in Chains, who died in 2002 due to drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
okay,
and I think apparently a lot of the kind of songs were about, or a few of them are perhaps just like seeing that happening around him as well.
maybe it was that. I think it was Lane Staley, so it wasn't him. It was, because he was doing heroin is what it was. So he was surrounded by heroin, but didn't do it himself is what it was. You're right. You're so right.
Okay. Yeah. So again, I think Alice in Chains is it's another massive blind spot for me. I've got no idea. I wouldn't name her.
Oh man! Oh, please do yourself a favor. There's no words. Also very, very powerful lyrics. Much more slow paced, I would say. Kind of you can tell there's drugs involved. We'll say that for sure.
Okay.
It's kind of a slower pace, kind of dragging almost, but like there's I don't know how else to put it, but there's like a romantic feeling to it. Like you can tell he was just going through it and expressing so much just emotion through those songs. So definitely listen to them. They're also massive. It's blowing my mind. I wish I could hear it, like watch you listen to them for the first time. Like
okay.
That's a big thing. That's like that's one of my favorite bands. I get made fun of because I'm like stuck in the 90s and early 2000s music wise. Like I just listen to the same things over and over again. But it's so good though. The because I'm a big lyric person. I just love writing in general. So these people write some beautiful, even without music, it's beautiful poetry just by itself, which is just so appreciated by me. So definitely check them out too. Definitely check them out. Highly suggested.
Okay, so if we move on to perhaps talking about a few of the songs on the album, so which songs jump out to you when you think of this album?
So the first one that I would say, oh man, there's a song called "The Nurse Who Loved Me," and when I first listened to the whole album, so The Outsider is on the end of the Resident Evil movie, and that was the first one that I heard. But "The Nurse Who Loved Me" is just such a weird little song. I don't know how else to put it. It's very quiet. It's very soft. It's a song about being in basically an insane asylum and falling in love, or thinking that he's falling in love with the nurse. He's saying also the nurse is falling in love with me. I can tell is what he's saying. And he's just doped up in a crazy house, falling in love with this nurse. So it's a very playful song. And that was the one that really made me realize, because it's so, as I was saying earlier, there's a lot of songs on this album that have a lot of negative space, meaning there's no instrumentation or lack of noise going on. And this was the first one that was so simple. I was like, this is all you're going to do with this song? There's no like crazy loud parts. There's nothing that's heavy guitar or whatever. It's just very spacey sounding. And yeah, you could definitely picture yourself like in an insane asylum or a mental health hospital, whatever you want to call it, on this album. And this was the one where I went from listening to a band called Job for a Cowboy that was quite heavy deathcore. I listened to this song specifically 1,000 times probably, just because I was impressed that there's nothing heavy about it at all. And I just loved the song. It was just so surprising to me to not have to have like, the whole time for me to be interested. I don't know how else to describe it. It's the simplest, most playful little piece of art. Like it's almost not a song. It sounds goofy, but it's just it puts you in a different headspace of being in like a mental health hospital. It's very spacey sounding, very much like you're just kind of loopy and yeah, it's definitely gave me a different perspective on music. I was like, "Oh, okay, I don't have to be yelling the entire time for it to be interesting to people." And it definitely made me want to simplify the way I was writing and the way I wanted to, present myself musically. So I still think about that to this day when I'm writing stuff. I'm like, okay, simplify. And it's because of things like this song. It doesn't have to have a whole lot of noise going on for you to appreciate it. So if you could do something simple and you can do it really well, you win at life. And that's what this song is. Super simple, straightforward, but it also puts you in this crazy frame of mind where you can close your eyes and listen to it from start to finish, and you feel like you've almost gone on an adventure while listening to this song. It puts you in another place, and a lot of songs fail to do that, that have that emotion and weight to them. Um, emotionally and feeling wise for the song, a lot of people can't execute that and make you feel like you're floating off into a different universe, but this song does that. It never ceases to do that for me either, even after 20 years of listening to it. So
It reminded me kind of little of kind of bit of like 1960s like rock and roll, like where like sometimes you get albums from the Beatles where they'll sometimes get kind of almost psychedelic but not psych rock, just
yes,
like almost like
yes,
it's like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, kind of that kind of
yeah,
instrumentation where it's kind of like slightly off merry-go-round type music where it feels like
yeah. That's a good way to put it. That's almost like a creepy carnival, almost
yeah,
of
yeah.
sorts, like a spacey psychedelic carnival of sorts. For sure. Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. Like the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds kind of vibe. It's little off key on some parts, a little wavy sounding with some of the effects that they do. So it just makes you feel kind of spacey and loopy almost, which I
Yeah,
love, which is great for this album with the message it's trying to get across and everything, and the subject matter that it's talking about is just perfect. Definitely an experience. The song is amazing.
yeah. I think
Definitely a favorite.
yeah, I can definitely get that feeling from this song as well. Particularly when, yeah, again, like perhaps being someone who's probably either in with a nurse or perhaps a nurse at a kind of either mental institution or a recovery, like a drug habit, where you're just kind of like latching on to kind of stuff, and you're perhaps still
Yeah.
not. Yeah, there's like a sense that, and I'm assuming, and what I quite like the deliberate kind of sense that there's a very disorientating feel to it. So you're perhaps still not fully understanding the faculties around you, and that's probably why this like unreliable narrator almost just like feels that he's found like the love of his life in this
Yeah.
nurse and stuff, who probably is only there for a job, but he's kind of convinced that they're
Exactly.
connected to each other and everything. So
Yes. Yes. Yeah, the song is great. It's definitely interesting the perspectives that he writes from, which I love. There's a line on it that I had to think about when I first heard this song. It says, the first line, say hello to the rug's topography, which is, if you know, topography is the, scale of the mountains and stuff on a map where it's like textured and risen up. So I had to think about that. I'm like, say hello to the rug's topography. Like that means you're looking at it from the side. So your face is even with this rug. So you're, he's on the floor on a rug. Say hello to the rug's topography. I'm like, oh, so you're on the ground, like messed up, loopy on something. And it sounds like that. The way it's just, I'm like, ooh, it's so good. The vibe of the song just fits exactly. Like if you picture it in your head and read those lyrics, it's like it puts you there. It puts you in that frame of mind, which is just beautiful to take you and put you in another frame of mind, another area. So
yeah, so
great song.
Yeah,
Can't do better.
So okay, if you want to move on to another song, the next song you want to talk about or highlight?
I would say The Outsider, because that was the one that I found from Resident Evil. Oh my God, that song is just so powerful. He's saying disconnect and self-destruct one bullet at a time. What's your rush now? Everyone has their day to die. That's some deep lyrics. That's some deep lyrics. It's a super powerful song. Again, still no screaming on it, which blew my mind. I was expecting it at some point to get real heavy on the end or whatever, but never. It's heavy, but it's not, scary heavy, and still just grabbed me immediately. That chorus just will blow your mind. It's so powerful. I remember reading the lyrics to that song and I was like, wow, it changed the way that I wrote my lyrics, because they're not really, it's kind of a mean song when you look at the lyrics. He's like, medicated drama queen, picture perfect, non-belligerent. So he's narcissistic drama queen, craving fame and all its decadence. It's just like kind of a mean song when you think about it, but it's just so beautiful. Yeah, it's just talking about, needing things all the time that we shouldn't really be needing, taking life too seriously in the things that we don't need. This is crazy because this is before social media, but I definitely think this song could apply to the people that are so soaked up in social media. They're not kind of perceiving life in a way that they should. But again, that's my own opinion of how people should do things, of course. But yeah, beautiful song talking about falling into the wrong types of things and what happens after that. So definitely the fall of society type of a song, and I'm into that kind of thing. So again, makes you think, but a beautiful song. So that was the first song I ever heard from them, and it blew my mind for sure. Yeah, I could listen to that song forever.
Yeah, I think the kind of narrator being on the outside of that kind of person who kind of believes that, I think it's like, again, showcasing the kind of the themes of this album, where it's supposed to be more of the outsider viewing of this other different types of outsiders. Mm-hmm. And I think that some of the Genius annotations and the notes for this is apparently saying this is about, it's like someone who doesn't really understand, who's only seen the surface level of what's happening. So I think to use the social media analogy, actually, that's pretty an interesting analogy to make, because you can get a very superficial kind of look at people and get an idea of, oh, they're doing this, this, and this, and this for their lives and stuff, and it's kind of staged, and there's probably a lot of underlying stuff. A lot of underlying stuff you don't see and stuff, so you can probably get a view of what, oh, someone's life is like this. And I think the same thing can kind of perhaps be a more serious kind of topic than perhaps the social media kind of like influencers lifestyle, but with addiction and an addict, but you don't fully understand the dichotomy. So people are probably just seeing like, oh, he's a junkie, just like doing nothing or anything, but perhaps not knowing why they're doing that, what they're doing and stuff, and not seeing that aspect and not seeing the full third dimension of everything. So it's I can again, it's kind of an interesting way of seeing that, particularly with, again, like the numerous kind of songs and artists that have sang about kind of like addiction from the autobiographical first person perspective. It's like kind of interesting to explore the different aspects of perhaps someone who doesn't get it, or at least or like the ignorance for someone who just can't understand or walk in, or just or at least as much as. And this is a tangent I wasn't expecting to go down. When I was at school,
yeah, that's okay.
When I was at school, we studied the book To Kill a Mockingbird, and and I don't know if you're familiar with the book or the story. And yeah, and like, but the general gist of that is the idea that the main character, Atticus Finch, is saying that to fully understand someone, you need to walk around in their shoes and just fully understand and see things from their perspective. But I think what's quite interesting is that the book also says to the floor that no, as much as you do that to try and see other people's, you are still you. So if you haven't got that understanding for the darker aspects of life, as much as you want to say, as much as like you want to be like more sympathetic towards someone, you can't, because you haven't gone through that, you still can't fully understand what they're doing and stuff. And I think that's very similar to what this kind of like song's trying to present in terms of not knowing exactly what people are seeing. You still like to use the title of the song, an outsider for what's happening, and you don't fully understand what's going on. But this is perhaps more of a superficial person who doesn't even consider walking in the shoes of the person in the subject of the song. So
it's crazy how it can travel through a song can travel through time and still, you know, apply so well to what's going on, you know, because of course that was before Instagram existed. That was, I don't know, maybe pre-Facebook probably. It's crazy that it can still apply to different things over time, and that's another reason I appreciate this song. Definitely makes you think deeper than the surface, which I think is the goal of any kind of music. But I love the sentiment of making you think deeper than, you know, just being a face on social media or whatever, which also applies to being a musician now. So it's just, you know, basically remember what you have and be grateful for it, and don't, you know, look at it deeper than what it is. I love these songs. They just make me appreciate, you know, existence and life. Just It's just so crazy how much this album changed my opinion about so many things. Yeah, I love that he makes you think, specifically lyrically. Like if you go through and read this whole album, it's just like, wow, like this guy was going through something for sure. For sure.
yeah.
Yes, fantastic, powerful song again.
So what song do you want to move on to next?
Ooh, can you read me the track list? Do you have it in front of you?
Yes, so we've got The
Like,
Package,
man.
Weak and Powerless, The Noose, Blue, Vanishing, A Stranger, The Outsider, Crimes, The Nurse Who Loved Me, Pet, Lullaby and Gravity. I can see you can't listen, you can't see this, but you can see the kind of like anguish of trying to pick one song to talk.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, oh man, The Noose. Oh man. You could go read any lyrics to that song and just be like, ooh, that is a deep one. I think that was I want to say that was like the second song that I had heard, because I just heard The Outsider and then started this album. So I want to say that was like the very first other song that I heard from them. And I'm just like, the what's the way to put that? I'm like, let me do. Can you see me still when I do this or no?
Yes.
Do I go black?
No.
Okay, dang it. I was gonna go say these lyrics, but this is another one that's kind of a mean song. Like it's kind of hateful towards another person, more or less. Great song, man. I wish we could play it on here and listen to it. I don't know if there's a way that we could do that. But this one is also definitely makes you think. Also, again, from the same perspective of dealing with someone with issues of addiction and trying to navigate that emotionally is just like, oof. And it's, you know, talking about he's basically saying like, I lie to get what I want is pretty much where he's coming from, which is a huge thing with addiction. So it's definitely, the lyrics take you by surprise because they're so honest. He's like, I'm lying to get what I want all the time. Like I'm lying to get what I came here for, and then I'm gonna leave. Like very very honest song that just, when I heard, I was very surprised when I heard. I was like, damn, this is like, you kind of could, you know, say like, I guess good for you for putting your emotions out there. Like, because that would be scary to say something like, hey, he's literally admitting basically like, I'm being a piece of shit. Like he's saying all the things, I'm gonna do this is what I came here for. I'm guessing talking about a woman. I've never looked into the meaning of the song. But he's basically saying like,
of The Noose. There's a
yeah.
There's a quote from Keenan here actually, which says about this.
I'm ready.
The lyrics were inspired by a meeting attended by Keenan in which a speaker discussed the tendency of others in recovery to be unfairly self-righteous. He mentioned something about not letting your halo choke you to death when it slips around your neck, so I grabbed my pencil, wrote it down, and told Billy I had an idea for a song. Now this next bit is a quote from a DVD called The Emotion DVD.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and I think this is quite an interesting perspective on the song, actually, from the person who wrote it. So he'd probably have a better idea about it, to be honest.
Right.
Okay, it's a really powerful thing for a person to come back from the edge of death and work their way back into being human again. These people are very impressive survivors, but some of them tend to wear that as some kind of crown and forget about the atrocities they committed.
Yep. That's it. That's exactly it. Definitely, yeah, his stories with all these people are just so crazy. And I'm sure, being famous as well and dealing with all this stuff was probably even crazier, but he's definitely sure right about that. Yeah, the line, your halo's slipping down to choke you now is just like, oof, that hurts. Like, but it makes you think, how many people are hiding something from you or not showing their real, intention, which is, I would say, most people, unfortunately. But it's almost nice with the sentiment of your halo, like, whatever you're saying makes you so good. Like, does it really though? Like, is that really who you are or not? So it's nice to have somebody expressing the hard emotions that we sometimes cannot express ourselves, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
hard to navigate.
I am not going to go down this well, but there have been instances, particularly in music and higher profile music, people who have been kind of preaching certain things and then have been found out to kind of be against that. But yeah, I'm not going to go down that well.
No, right. We won't
Yeah.
go too deep into that. But
Yes, but again, yeah. So read into that, but there is very similar, like, yeah, things where people kind of like try and say, oh, yeah, need to do this and this and this, whilst pretty much going against stuff that they've done in the past and not admitting it and stuff. But
exactly, very hypocritical.
hypocrite, yeah, that's the word, yeah. But um, so how long we got left? So perhaps about a couple more songs we can talk about. So have you got any that you're dying to talk about that we've not mentioned?
Oh man, just this whole, I would say, as a whole, it's so hard to pick because literally all of these songs are so different, which is why I love this album. They're all so different, but also so honest. So it's hard for me to pick just one. It's like the whole work by itself is just it's like bookended. Everything is fantastic from start to finish. Um, Man, name me the song list again. I'm like, there's got to be one that I know the package is super good.
Package, Weak and Powerless, Blue, Vanishing, A
We
Stranger,
can.
Crimes, Pet, Lullaby, Gravity, the ones we haven't talked about.
Oh man, Pet is a really good one. Pet is a full vibe right there. I'm not really sure how sexual that song is supposed to be, but it is quite. That song is definitely a vibe for sure. Um, Man, it's really, honestly, if anybody listens to this podcast and says there's one song that I want to listen to, I would say Pet, I would say The Nurse Who Loved Me, and I would say The Outsider. I would say those are probably the top three that stick out. And they're so different from each other, which is crazy. Like, it's almost hard to believe they're on the same album, just vibe wise, they're so different. But the whole thing as a whole is just beautiful, deep, and it makes you think. Each of these songs you could literally play at any time during the day, and whatever the first time was that you listened to it, you'll be able to go back to that moment and kind of mark it in your brain because it's just it's an experience. It definitely, every song is an experience within itself, which is super nice. Like I said, they make you kind of melt into the emotion that he was feeling. Like, we have a hard time kind of saying these emotions ourselves. So when you listen to these songs, it's like you can feel what he was going through when he was writing this, which is crazy. It's so hard to put your actual feeling and make it sound like you were feeling at that time. But you can absolutely tell he was going through some shit for sure. For sure. Um, but yeah, I'm really glad that you like The Nurse Who Loved Me because I show people that song sometimes and they're like, this is a little weird because it is. It's a funky little song, right? Like very quiet, very spacey. Uh I would say other notable mention, the package just being way honest about emotion, and the separation from emotion and just acting physically about things. Man, yeah, this album's a whole experience. You just gotta listen to the whole thing. I'm like, I don't know what else to say about any of these songs. They're just like all great. I'm like, yeah, all of them are just sick. Like everything is just sick. There's no like I could brag about each of these songs for like an hour. They're just until you experience it, and then you'll be like, oh, okay. Because you hear a song called "The Nurse Who Loved Me," and you're like, what now? Like, okay, but it's not what you think. Definitely will take me back to being, 14, 13, 14 every time I hear these songs. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm glad you dig it.
So, moving on to perhaps talking about the critical reception of it. I don't think there's a Pitchfork review, which is really annoying, but it's quite like trying to find a Pitchfork review. So there isn't one, unfortunately. But it was generally favourable. Metacritic's got a 74 based on 11 critical reviews. All Music strongly praised the album for having a sound of musical and lyrical maturity that normally doesn't occur until the band's third or fourth albums. And is proof that mainstream rock has plenty of life and vision for it. So, All Music gave it 4 out of 5. Alternative Press gave it 5 out of 5. Drowned in Sound, 8 out of 10. E! Online, B+. Entertainment Weekly, 3 out of 4. Something called Cludge, which I've never heard before, 6 out of 10. Mojo, 7 out of 10. Q, 6 out of 10. Rolling Stone, 3 out of 5. And Spin Magazine, 4 out of 10. Which,
Oh, wow. 4 out of 10, huh? Man,
yeah.
I always wonder what kind of people are the ones that are writing these things. Like if they don't like hard rock, or if you know what I mean. I'm like, I would love to see, and not that they're wrong, but I'm just, because it's all perception and perspective, I guess, on these things. It's art. That's 4 out of 10. That's surprising. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
but I could see if you're. Yeah, I'm like, if you're not a fan of like rock or experimental things at all, and you're more of like a pop fan, I could see somebody being like, I'm not gonna lie. I showed there's a dude I was dating, and he's like, what's your favorite album? And I sent him just A Perfect Circle in general. I was like, just listen to this band. And he's like, yeah, I kind of am like not into it. I can't vibe with that at all. I stopped talking to it. I was like, just if you can't appreciate it, that's like one of the biggest things that, have changed my musical career, and my opinions about art and music. I was like, we're not going to have very much to talk about, homie. Like, because he straight up was just like, I didn't like it. Like, didn't have anything. I was like, oh, well, I gotta go. Bye. I'm like, I'm sorry you have terrible taste. Like, so yeah, that's how big this band in particular, this album is great, but the band in general just so impressive. 4 out of 10. I'm like, I'll let them have it. That's their own opinion, but it is a wrong opinion though.
in terms of its performance in terms of the charts, it got to number 2 on US Billboard 200. Got to number 1 in 2 countries, New Zealand and Canada.
Oh, okay. That's surprising. Okay. Dang, in New Zealand of all places. That's crazy.
Got to number 3 in Australia, 7 in Norway, 11 in Germany, 11 in Italy, 16 in Finland. Oh, wow. Got to
I didn't know.
Got to number 33 in Scotland, but number 37 in the whole of the UK, which is I didn't realise they had a separate Scottish albums list. That's new. That's the first time that's appeared on here before.
What is it?
A Scottish albums chart. I didn't realise Scotland had their own unique chart as well. Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. UK got number 37 in UK.
Oh wow! Dang, 37. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's surprising that Canada liked it so much. That's interesting. I love that though.
It went gold in Canada. 50 with.
Oh wow.
With around 50,000 sold. 7,500 in New Zealand, but that went gold as well. But then again, I think the population of New Zealand in comparison to the population of Canada is very, very, very different.
Yeah. Right, for sure.
Certified silver in the UK, 60,000, and went platinum in the US.
Oh wow, good for it. Should. I mean, it should.
Million sold apparently. So
that must be nice. Man, god dang.
So there is a million people that you can talk to.
Yeah, yeah, at least for sure. At least I love that. Yeah, I've noticed most of the people that like them are slightly older than me as well. Because I was, like I said, I was like 13 or 14 when I found it, and everybody else was, I think, probably in their maybe almost 20s listening to it that I knew of. So everyone that I find that really likes them is usually like almost a decade older than me for whatever reason. But yeah, it's really cool getting to talk to people about it. There's a few others. So I tattoo for a living, and it's a big for whatever reason, tattooed people love a perfect circle. I'm not sure how that happened, or if it's just like the artist vibes or whatever. But yeah, there's a bunch of tattooers that it's always, no matter what shop I've tattooed in, always have a perfect circle playing all the time. Everybody loves them. My old boss was like obsessed with them. They have a song called Judith, and her name was Judith. So, yeah, it's just huge tattooers. We'll say that. I think it's because we're all emo kids on the inside. It's a very emotional, emotional band. So I feel like that it goes hand in hand. Kids.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, I saw that on Instagram when I was doing some just like preemptive research and stuff. That is tattooist. Have you ever done any perfect circle tattoos?
I have. I've done one. I've done their logo one time on this girl's forearm right here. It was just a little guy, but we were talking about him the whole time, and she was saying she saw them live and it just blew her mind, and so she had to get the tattoo the next day. So I was like, oh yeah, awesome. So apparently it was great, and we were talking about this earlier. I've never seen them live. That's
the next question.
Oh yeah, well, perfect then. Yeah.
So the question I always ask around this point is, have you ever seen them live? But it's a shame then. So have you seen Tool or?
I have. I've seen Tool a time. It was fantastic. Huge show, of course. So many people. Amazing. I mean, of course, it's amazing. I've always wanted to see a perfect circle. I don't know the last time that they've played a show. I would have to look that up. But I know they came through Houston like a few years ago, and I was out of town, so I couldn't go. And I was pissed when I found out. I was like, no! I had a trip booked or something and just couldn't go. I already had paid for my trip or whatever. But of course, everybody that saw it was just like, oh my God, just head over heels, amazing performance, fantastic. I'm like, oh, if it ever happens again, I will sacrifice whatever I have to be able to go.
I'm quite surprised that. Well, I would have thought it'd have been an album that's seen, from what I'm reading, that it'd been prime for a 20th anniversary kind of reunion.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it would be this year, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think. Yeah, the time of your listening to this is obviously the quote unquote 10th of October, as you're listening to this, obviously, because I'm pretty sure everyone is listening to this the day it comes out. On the day of recording, where it's a few days before its 20th anniversary, so it was released on the 16th of September. So we're not far from the 20th anniversary of this album. So.
Oh my gosh.
So which is Saturday, I think. So
I would hope that they would do something that would be so. I mean, they're not already talking about it. I guess not. But dang, you're right. That would be a perfect 20th anniversary. Oh, what a gift to see that. Oh my God, I would just die. Just me immediately. Just that's it.
About nearly what. Just 3.5 years ago, I was able to see the 10th anniversary of my favourite album, and it was like a liberating experience, so to speak.
What was it? What was your favourite album?
It's it was the album that for the 100th episode of this podcast, I actually covered it. I spoke to someone about it. It's a band called Los Campesinos. Okay. With an album called Romance is Boring. and they did a 10th anniversary show in London, which I remember getting, and remember getting a hotel. And this was in February of 2020, and already there were signs around the venue like saying, "Please wash your hands," and wash your hands, and just like be careful of stuff. And so it was the early stages of COVID, and so it was like a lot of initial kind of like about a month before lockdown started. So that was kind of getting through as well. But it's a kind of really kind of like good feeling, particularly songs that I never saw live before. And there's a kind of, the penultimate song on the album is a song called There Is a Flag, and it starts with 40 seconds of this ever building kind of indie pop clash of kind of like different instruments, so like glockenspiels and all these kind of violins and everything. And there's all 7 members screaming to the microphone, "Can we all please just calm the fuck down?" And I've been waiting 10 years to sing that in a and there was like about 600, like up to about 1,000 people in this venue screaming that at the same time, going, "Can we all please just calm the fuck down?" And like I was like, life goal in that. But
I'm sure everyone was waiting for that moment forever.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and I hope they do something with it anyway, or at least, as I said, they probably would have mentioned it by now, I think, if they was going to do something for it. But it's
for sure.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't, particularly from it apparently being quite successful for them as well. So, but
oh yes,
maybe one day.
Yeah, dang, right? That's like missed opportunity there. That makes me sad. You're sure right. Dang, September 16th, you said?
Yes, so it's this Saturday. So Saturday's 20th.
Man, one can only hope that they will have some special performance or something. Who knows? Maybe there's still hope yet. We're not there yet. There's a chance. I'm like holding out for any kind of hope for it. Dang, it has been 20 years. It's crazy. Wow. Jeez, I've been listening to this album for like 20 years. That's insane. It goes by fast. I feel like a true Texan. I'm like, it just starts going by so fast, doesn't it? Oh, God. Remind me of my own grandma.
So people have listened to 13th Step and perhaps want to listen to something else by Perfect Circle. Where do you recommend they go to next?
Oh man, like band wise or album wise?
Album wise, from the same band.
Oh, I definitely say Murder Noms for sure. That's the next one. That was their first album, but definitely a little more serious tone for sure. A little more aggressive riffs and stuff like that. Great album though. Another great album. Like I said, I literally had to go between that one and this one like 2 or 3 times and listen to them, every single track. That was my other choice. So definitely Murder Noms as well. Yeah, 13th Step, definite favorite. Murder Noms, very, very close second. Very close second. So that's the one for sure. For sure.
Okay. So this is the very important question, the important part of the podcast now, which is the song for the Spotify Hall of playlist. Now, if anyone's not listened to the podcast before, what this is I'm going to ask Lucy to pick one song to be immortalised forever in the Spotify Hall of Fame playlist. I can't veto what the choice is. Whatever Lucy says goes. So, Lucy, which song are you going to put onto the playlist?
Oh, man. And it can be just anything from this album?
From this album.
Anything from this album. Man. I'm like one song. If people have never heard this band and I want them to hear one song. This is hard. I don't think people realize how difficult this is. It's like, stroking my beard here. I'm going to say The Outsider, man. I got to say The Outsider. I think that's the one. Because it was the first one that I heard. And I immediately, it's one of those that and of course, like I said earlier, I think this is before you could Shazam a song. So I was just Googling the lyrics. But it just grabbed me as soon as I heard this song. I was like, whatever band this is, I'm going to love this. I was like, if anything else they've written is anything like this song, this is going to be one of my favorite bands. And then boom, it was. So I feel like if it was my first, it should be someone else's first, for sure.
No, yeah, I think all valid reasons for picking the Outsider. I think is like your own entry point to it, and I think to be fair, I think it is a very valid entry point as well. It's the on that album, it's the track with the highest number of listens on Spotify. It's
I could definitely see that.
83,
I didn't know that, but I could see that for sure.
83.7 million.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof. Oof.
So, second is Weak and Powerless with 48. Weak and Powerless.
Yeah, that's a good. Oh, man, all these songs. Oh my god, all these songs are so good. I envy people that get to listen to these songs for the first time. Like I really, really do. I will never forget being so young and not knowing anything about music and just being like the whole time just blew my mind. So anybody listening to this for the first time, you're in for a real treat for sure. I love this. Oh God, the whole album is just so dang good. Yeah, I hope somebody becomes a new fan from this for sure.
So we are now gearing up to the end of our chat, Lucy. So
yes,
yeah. So before we do, if people want to find you and haunt and like about yourself, the tattooing, and especially Haunter, because
yes,
because you've got a single coming out, and we'll talk about that in a second. Where can people find you in the band?
So if you guys want to find me, I am on mostly myself personally. I'm on Instagram at Lucy Lenoir, Lenoirr with 3 R's on it. If you want to find my band Haunter, everything, all of our socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, is at Haunter Isn't Real. Even though we are real, it's Haunter Isn't Real. Our website is also haunterisn'treal.com, so you can go look at our merch, stream all of our songs. And then we were talking about this earlier. We have a new song, Untouchable, coming out in the beginning of October. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. We do have a pre-save link out for that as well. So when you go to our socials, you can go ahead and pre-save when that video comes out, because there is a video with it as well. And I cannot wait for people to see this. I feel like this song should be on a Disney movie. I'm just going to throw that out there. I really feel like it's like a Disney movie ballad for sure.
Yeah, I think by the time this comes out, I think it will already be out. So I think people can like jump in and see stuff. So, but yeah, I was fortunate enough to give it to be able to listen to it. And one of the things I think that kind of jumped out is that I think in the email he says for fans of churches, and I love churches, and
me too. Yeah. They're so good. Yeah, everything they do is magical.
Yeah, so basically anyone who's a fan of churches, check it out, because it ticks a lot of those boxes. And I think and I managed to see churches for the first time in years. I think in June early this year, and I was like, so like it was the first time I've seen them in ages and stuff, and it was just forgotten how good it's one of those bands like I haven't really listened to for a while, and then you just remember, you kind of forget how good they are or how much
and you're like, oh word, you're like, they do okay, you're like, all right.
Yeah.
They remind you real quick for sure.
But yeah,
that's so good.
But yeah,
that's
I think
so good.
But yeah, I really quite like the song and stuff, and it kind of like getting ticks a couple of my boxes and stuff. But so I'm assuming, so I'm assuming there's that, and I'm assuming there's more plans for Haunt stuff afterwards as well as the things in the pipeline.
Oh yes, we have quite a few songs in the background stirring around. So we are lucky enough to have, I think we've got already an album's worth of songs recorded that we're just keeping on the back burner, so we can just keep releasing things as singles as we go. So we've got quite a bit of songs to still put out, along with videos as well. So definitely follow us. Haunter Isn't Real on everything. You guys can stream all of our stuff. We hit 1 million streams on Spotify recently as well, which was a big deal. Very proud of that. So we don't suck. That's the good news. So a million streams say that we're all right. So very proud of that. But yeah, all of our socials are at Haunter Isn't Real, haunterisn'treal.com. You can, I was going to say you can pre-save it, but I guess you're right. By the time this, I forget, it's like in the future. We're in the future. But yeah, definitely stream Untouchable. We worked really hard on this song. We wrote it in LA on the top of a high-rise condominium building that we were staying in. And we were all just feeling great, drinking champagne. And the story was, we all felt untouchable. We're like, we were so high up on this building. We felt like we just got done recording for the week. We were just all on this like high, amazing feeling. Like no one can mess with us. No one can tell us our dreams are, unrealistic or whatever. And no matter where we come from. And that's what this song is about, is that feeling of just being like, we're untouchable. You can't mess with us. We're doing it. This is our passion. You can't make us stop, even if you wanted to. So this song is definitely like, it's huge. It just sounds grand, as I've been telling everyone. It just sounds epic. It's an epic song for sure. So stream that and then message me and let me know what you think about it at Lucy Lenoir. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, tell him that Matt from Piccadilly sent you as well, just to show.
Yes, of course, of course. Hell yeah!
But I'm quite looking forward to seeing. I'm real forward to seeing when it comes out, and looking forward to the video as well, because I don't think the video's not out yet, particularly. So I've not seen the video yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing that when it comes out. And
it's pretty good. We look expensive. So it's good.
Looks expensive.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
But funny. I think do that. So yeah, again, do check out Haunter as well. And we are now at the end of our chat, Lucy. So I just want to say thank you ever so much for kind of what might be the slow descent into me having to slowly start getting into more screaming metal, or at least encourage people, or at least people start encouraging me, going, "Oh, I wonder if I could subject Matt to this."
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of it that you will like. I promise you you'll find something. There's so many different genres of metal. Oh man, I'm excited for you. It's the beginning of a great journey, my friend.
But thank you for coming on.
Yes, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
You've been listening to Pick a Disc, and I've been your host, Matthew Latham. Our theme music is Pump by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Pick a Disc is hosted by the We Made This podcast network, and you can find them on www.spreaker.com/user/WeMadeThis. You can find the Pick a Disc show site on www.spreaker.com/show/pickadisc. You can find us on all the usual social media type places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under Pick a Disc. You can also email us on pickadisc@gmail.com. Until next time, happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.